It's the go.
Okay, well, we are live now. So let's just talk about restorative practices. First of all, I like to thank Denise for accepting my request to come to talk to us about restorative practices. And I want to give you a little background information. Back in maybe about 5-6 years ago, maybe longer than that, I was assigned to one of the lowest performing schools in the state of Texas. Of course, with that school, there were drugs, there were guns. Of course, we had children of color that were living in poverty environment, and nobody wanted to go to that school. As a matter of fact, when I was assigned to that school, my colleagues told me, I don't know whether to say congratulations or you have my sympathy. So that's the kind of school I was assigned to. And I knew that my superintendent and assistant superintendent had high expectations for me, and I had even higher expectations for myself. But I just didn't know, how I was going to do it. So I remember one lady in particular who had come in from out of town and registered her child into my school and came back the next day and said, I heard about this school, I'm taking my child out. But there were just story after story. And I had to figure out a way to do something because it was just out of control. And you can suspend children home day after day after day. They're going to come back, and yes, nothing different happening at the house. They're going to come back with the same old thing. Mm-hmm. So what we decided that we would try something called a boot camp. Well, back in the day, boot camp was a place where you went to get retrained, rejuvenated, and then led back out into the general population. So we had a group of about 25 kids who were what we would call in those days the frequent flyers. Yes. And I'm sure everybody has a name for those people who go in and out of suspension and ISS. We called ours frequent flyers. But these were kids who were just crying out for help. We didn't know back then. We knew that suspending them was not the answer. So we pretty much developed, our own program. We found a place in our building. We told parents what our expectations were. They said, sure, if you're going to spend some extra time with them, oh, that's just great. Right. And we told parents, well, from this day on, this is probably about the last 6 weeks of school. From this day on, you will not receive another telephone call saying, come pick up your child. Mm-hmm. Because we're going to take care of them. And then fast forward, we found out about something called, back then, I think it was called restorative justice. And then we came across a lady named Denise Holliday, and she had something called restorative practices. And that was just like something we had never seen before. We knew there had been some research, but, we just had no idea. So Denise is here tonight with us, and she's going to share some information. If you have a chat, we have a chat. You can ask any questions you'd like. And then towards the end of our show, then we'll try to answer questions. But Denise, if you would just kind of start out giving us a little of your background, and then tell us how you got involved with restorative practices and some of the history of restorative practices.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, so much. I do remember when I met you. So I'm Denise Holliday. I am co-founder of National Educators for Restorative Practice. I've been in education for over 22 years prior to stepping out on faith and really doing the work of building relationships That's restorative practice. We can't restore something that we don't have. And so we got to build those relationships so that we build trust. And kids trust us, parents trust us, and our staffs trust us. But I want you to know most about me is that I was that kid. I was the kid that was kicked out of school often. I got in lots of trouble. My needs were not met. And I felt like if the teachers would have taken the time to really get to know me, I think we would have been in a better place. I always say we end up chasing the smoke. When we build relationships with students, parents, and our staff, that gives us an opportunity to put out the fire. And the only way we're going to know what's starting that fire is to build relationship. So I worked on a DAP campus, which is a disciplinary alternative placement campus in Manor, Texas. And so I was the restorative coordinator on that campus, and we saw some great things happening from that. And then I had the opportunity to work with TEA and the University of Texas School of Social Work. So we traveled the state of Texas and provided restorative discipline training for educators throughout the state for free. We had the admin training, which was a 2-day training. And then we had the 5-day coordinator training. And so that coordinator training kind of dived deeper into the practices of restorative discipline. But I met this guy named Kevin Curtis through those trainings because he was one of the lead trainers. And we were both at awe with one another. I thought, man, he is amazing. And he would say the same, I think she's amazing. And we started the company, Texas Educators for Restorative Practice. Now, what we realized is if you say restorative discipline, they're expecting discipline. So you hear discipline, the teachers were expecting something to happen to the students that were struggling. But what we needed to focus on and figure out, how do we really work with those teachers that are in the trenches, doing the work? And it's not just the theory part of it, but the practice part of it.
Stop right there, Denise. That's a key element. I know that when I was an assistant principal, I didn't have anything in my arsenal to do besides suspending kids home or sending them to ISS. That's all I knew. Nobody taught me anything about an alternative. When a teacher had written a kid up, and it was the same kids, in and out. If they had written that child up 3 or 4 times, they expected that child to be suspended. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't suspend that child, then they were reporting me to the principal to say, I'm doing nothing with them. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have anything. I didn't have anything else. I could keep them in my office. I knew I could do that because some of them, that's the only place they would survive. Teachers didn't know what to do. Teachers, they taught the same way somebody taught them back in the day.
That's right.
And they expected the child to sit still through sometimes boring instruction. They had, no idea how to do a check to see if the kids were understanding. They expected them to sit still and, their little rows. And then if a child acted out, the only arsenal they had was write a referral, put them out.
That's right. You have those three things. What was it? ISS, in-school suspension,
that's right.
School suspension, or they were going to the DAP.
Right.
That's right. About when teachers send their students out of class to the assistant principal or the counselor, I always used to tell my teachers, you relinquish your power to the administrator. Because what happens is the student is getting to know you, right? They're spending a lot of time in your office and you're having those conversations as they calm down. And it's sort of a brain break for them that they need it. Unfortunately, you are the one giving it to them. And so if we take a step back and give teachers the tools to provide the brain breaks and the connections in the classroom, I think teachers will have the power to take their classes back.
You know, Denise, for those who are just coming on, I need to reintroduce you. Denise Holiday is the co-founder of National Educators for Restorative Practices, where she utilizes her expertise to train and support districts, campuses, and classrooms across the country by creating experiences where passion and purpose come together to help change relationships on a campus, one educator at a time. Denise formerly worked as a co-trainer for the 5-day restorative discipline coordinator training and the 2-day restorative discipline readiness training for administrators offered by the Texas Education Agency and the University of Texas. And that's where our paths crossed, because the assistant principals on my campus, along with myself as the principal, we knew that this was a train that we had better get a ride on, because we knew that there had to be another way. Denise has over 20 years of experience in education and was the former restorative discipline coordinator and educational assistant at Manor ISD DAEP, which educators, we know what that is. That's the Disciplinary Alternative Education Program. While serving at the DAEP, she used her experience and skill set in the circle model. And I know a lot of people identify restorative practices with the circle model. And the circle model she uses to counsel at-risk youth and proactively intervene in crisis situations. She's been instrumental in developing systems that have facilitated successful transitions for students as they enter DAEP and exit back to their home campuses. This exceptional experience allows her to help grasp the necessary mindset for implementing this approach successfully. Denise concentrates in training students, staff, parents, families, and community members in the power of circle. She has served as a parent educator in Austin Independent School District, working with teen mothers and fathers. And Denise not only leads circles on the campus, but also lives out circles in all areas of her life, thus entering her nickname, Circle Mama.
Oh, yes.
And that's when I learned from you that circles are not only good for students, but they're good for families. All of us have some type of situation in the family. I don't care whether you're the highest of the high or the lowest of the low.
It's about it is about being heard. Circle is more about listening and learning. But through Circle, we get to keep humanity at the center.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we have those conversations with our family members and we get upset with the topic. We got to stay focused and centered in that's the person that I love. So how can we listen with grace? And so I also had the opportunity to co-author a book called Classroom Circles.
All right.
So it was great to be able to kind of put some of those experiences in the book so that people could understand the tools, the elements and components of Circle. But what we realized is we had to step back.
Yeah.
And find a place for building that relationship first.
So Denise, the restorative practices has been around for a minute now, and there have been lots of trainings offered through the Education Service Centers, through the Texas Education Agency. And some people have not been exposed to circles. We have people here who are not from Texas, and they've never heard of restorative practices. So when you go into a school or you do a training, what are some of the highlights of the training for restorative practices?
Some of the highlights of the training is really getting educators to allow themselves to be vulnerable and transition from that fixed mindset of traditional education and move forward toward providing something where they can really get to know their students. So we like to say we cross our arms. We're in class, we cross our arms, and that's usually how we stand. We think about traditional education is it's done this way. If they do this, there's a suspension, there's no conversation, period. I'm the adult, I'm the administrator, that's how it is. But restorative practice allowed us to live in gray. Gray is grace. It doesn't have to be the suspension, and it doesn't have to be, all right, we're not going to suspend. But how do we bring those two together so that it works for everyone and accountability is understood from within?
So let's do a little scenario for our classroom teachers and also for our administrators. So you have a teacher in a classroom, and they're having a little difficulty with classroom management. And as a matter of fact, they're one of the teachers who has an excessive amount of referrals being sent to the assistant principal's office. So to the administrator, without going through the program, what can you tell that administrator to intercede, and what tools that, one or two things that they could do? And at the same time, we want to clarify that it's not all about circles. Circles is part. But it's not all about circles.
And I'm so glad you say that, because what I would say to that administrator and that teacher, first, I'm going to ask them to take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. So often we just want to feel like we got to push through it and make it right. We don't have to be right. We just have to get it right. And the way we do that, we have teachers live in green. We say paint your classroom green. Green is proactive. How can we step back and begin to use proactive tools to build relationships? We have one tool called a 60-second relate break. I want you to think of that just as a turn and talk. Maybe I'm checking the roll and I throw out a fun question like, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? I can still check the roll while students turn to one another and answer that question. Now, when the students are done and I'll come back to center, I'm going to answer last, the teacher. And I'm going to say my favorite ice cream is strawberry. We all know, I've heard them. They've learned something about me. They've learned something about each other. And I've learned something about them. So we take that step back. We like to scaffold up to circle. So a 60-second relate break, turn and talk, baby steps. We have to step back and build those relationships first. If we don't have the relationships, we're just going to be swimming uphill.
I know also too, from the training, because I received the training from NED RP and have assisted with the training. And the thing that I like about restorative practices is that, first of all, as the teacher, as the administrator, you have to be prepared before you go into that classroom.
Mhm.
You have to be prepared. And there's some techniques that are used from the time the child enters the classroom,
Yes.
whether it's pre-K, whether it's elementary, middle school, high school, that pretty much sets the tone for a kid. And you can tell when that child walks into the class whether it's going to be a good day or not so good day. So what about those kids who just, they just want to check out? They don't want to be involved with, with any of this. What do you do with kids like that?
So, with the students that just want to check out, I'm going to want to find out why they're wanting to check out. So, like you said, there is an avenue to get there when we talk about a pulse meter or a mood meter. Before the kids even enter the classroom, I want to check in with them. It's that looking over from head to toe to see where they are, but also allowing them to get a gauge for themselves of where they are. Like, am I blue today? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling happy? Or if they point to the red, and there's so many different ways to check in with students, but if they shoot to that red, guess what? That's the student that I'm going to go to and check on and see how they're doing. One. Two, I'm going to greet every single student at the door so they see me and I see them. I think the biggest thing for students who want to check out is they already feel invisible.
Yeah.
Feel like no one is seeing them. Therefore, there's that lack of value. So I want to check in with each student as they come. Good morning. I'm going to meet them. I'm going to greet them. How are you doing? They check in where they are. And then the first 90 seconds of class, how can we create positive sparks? Now, positive sparks is a way to create positive interactions between the students. You tell me, I don't know about you, but if I walk into a room and the first thing we do is something fun to spark or uplift one another, I'm off to a good day.
So, Denise, we have had schools closed since March of last school year. Some kids did not go to summer school. Some kids had not had, say, formal instruction from March until maybe September. And of course, for quite a few school districts, they did not do any face-to-face. It was all online. It was all remote. And now, for a lot of districts, they're back face-to-face. But for those districts and those teachers who are still online with their students, they face a plethora of things that we had never been exposed to before. Not the superintendent, not the principal, not the teachers. Everybody was just pretty much just kind of winging it, trying to build the plane as it was flying, as they say. And now we've had some successes, quite a few failures, but we've learned from the failures. But now that we are accustomed to the remote learning, can you do some of the restorative practices in the remote environment?
Absolutely, we can connect virtually. Now, when we first started this at the beginning of summer, I started a group called Class of 2020. We know the Class of 2020 was dumped on. Those seniors that were ready to graduate, and all that was just snatched away from them. And so I would do virtual circles with them, and I thought, how can I connect with those students? And I had doubts myself, thinking, all right, we're going to circle online, we're going to connect online. What is that going to be like? Like, can this work? And let me tell you, it has been so successful that I circle 3 days a week, on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays with educators. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do classroom circles with teachers. And let me tell you, those students are dying to have the opportunity to do something fun that has nothing to do with academics. Nothing to do. And many of the responses and the feedback that I get from teachers is, on those days, their students perform academically much better than the days that they don't connect. So it can be done. You can do virtual circles, 2-minute connections, Spark. There's so many different things that you can do virtually with students online. So yes, it can be done.
So I see one person that just said, amen. So if you have any questions that you're concerned about, questions that you would like to ask Denise, just put that in your chat. We are live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube. And I may not be able to see all the questions, but we can certainly answer the questions that we see. So just put your question in the chat that you may have. So with restorative practices, again, your organization has had several conferences. And all of these were, pre-COVID, of course.
Yeah.
But and I know you're planning for another conference. So tell us what your conference is going to look like your next conference. I don't know whether it's going to be this year or whether it's going to be next year. And for those of you who are asking questions, we're going to try to save maybe about the last 10 minutes, and we'll try to answer those questions. So I do see your questions, so just continue asking those questions. Okay, so about the conference.
Yes, so we had to postpone this year's conference, and so we're looking at
and we'll try to answer those questions.
So we're looking at 2021, and what is it going to look like? Of course, we want to have it live. We thought about doing a virtual conference this year, but it just was too much and too little to really have to put it all together and figure it out. There may be opportunities to do some virtual things, as well as, depending on where we are, this time next year, November, with the COVID, but it will definitely be social distance, but many topics. But here's the thing about conference that I think was the game changer for us, was when we allowed students to come and present to educators. They had a circle room where students would facilitate circles with educators, all the educators there, but we had a keynote student speaker last year. And the thing that most took away, the students said, hey, teachers, we want you to connect with us, get to know us, think about the things that we like, because your academics, we could go find it online. But if you choose not to connect with us, we can check out and Google any of the work you're doing. That probably was the most powerful thing that student said of all the conference. We can check out and Google your content if you choose not to connect with us. I'm telling you, we need to listen to students.
That's powerful.
Yes,
that's powerful.
That's the truth.
And in this age of technology, I mean that is so true. we used to say that you could take your honors kids and put them in a room with, we used to say with the television and just flash the stuff across the screen and they'd learn it. But the majority of our students are not our honor students. The majority of our students are just, regular, B, C students. And of course, during these times, we have the children who are coming from environments, which is, they didn't create the environment. They didn't write a letter and say, I want to come here and live, in an environment that's going to be a challenge.
Right.
But if we as educators are going to be in that classroom, then we're going to have to figure out a way to make sure that that personal connection is there in that classroom. And when that child says, I can get what what you learning. What you teaching me. I can get that.
Yeah. And the tools that we use, those proactive tools that we use and that we train on, it gets to hit so many different types of students. We sometimes forget about those students that are doing just fine and they make those A's, but they're very quiet. We very rarely hear from them. And many of those students say, I don't feel like I'm seen, because I don't cause problems, because I get my work done, but I have stuff that I'm going through as well. And then, of course, we do have the students that their circumstances are unimaginable for some. And so what we see when they come to school, we see those behaviors, right? They're frustrated, they're angry, maybe they're hungry. We don't know what they have had to deal with by the time they make it to our doorstep. And so I always tell educators, if we could learn to love them first, before we even know that they're on our rosters, no matter who they are, what they look like, what they believe, or who they love, if we love them first, we can make so much more leeway and allowing them to be able to have successful academic.
Some of the training that is done for teachers with restorative practices, where they meet before they actually go into classrooms. And can you just kind of talk about some of those experiences where teachers are human too?
Yes.
They don't come with a clean slate.
Right.
They come with all of their baggage as well. They come with all of their preconceived notions about people, about children, about their life experiences. Can you tell us about, with restorative practices, how are you able to prepare teachers for them to prepare themselves to go into that classroom?
We ask administrators some of the same things that you see and you want in your students or from your teachers. How can we give that to our teachers? A timeout, a think time, a connection, checking in with teachers, because you're right, hurt people hurt people. And our educators are working so hard to manage home, virtual, live, and will I even have a job? Grace must show up. Grace must show up for those educators that are struggling. But how do we know that they're struggling if we don't check in with them? Sometimes we have to have those difficult conversations with educators that we don't want to have. And when that time comes, whether it's student or families or those teachers, I always like to say, bring Clara to the table. difficult conversation. And what that means is when we are approached in a time where we have to talk about something that makes us uncomfortable or makes us feel like, how can I handle this? And that's race, that's bias, that's stereotypes that all show up. Bring clarity to the table. We're going to stay calm, or find a way to calm yourself before you engage in that conversation. And then we're going to listen with grace, listen to the human of that person and not the situation or not the problem or the issue. And then find a way to affirm. During a time right now, affirmations are needed. Affirm something that you know about them or that you heard in that conversation. And then how do we respond? Respond so that we're adding value and we're not putting them down. And then the very last thing is add. Add value to that conversation so that we can move forward and grow. The only way we do that is bringing clarity to the table.
So I'll go on as we, start bringing things to a close. One question that was asked, and Sandra Gail Castile says, awesome. A Facebook user, they asked the question, what does a virtual circle look like?
Oh, so virtual circle. Look, I'm going to give you an opportunity to experience a virtual circle because you're going to go to our Facebook page and click on that link to join the virtual circle on Mondays at 6, Thursday at 4:30, and Saturdays at 10.
What's the Facebook page?
National Educators for Restorative Practice. And we send out that link every week to join the circle. But let me tell you a little bit about what it looks like. So students or teachers sign on. And what I do is number each person in the community. So I make sure everyone has a number by their name. Now the number is used, we use that as to signify the talking piece. So number 1, I'm going to ask a question, I'm going to respond. And once my mute button goes red, then the next person knows that signifies the passing of the talking piece so they can then respond. I have a virtual circle guidelines that stays up on the screen the whole time. So we know what those guidelines are. When it's your turn to speak, you speak. We go in number order, 3 to 4 questions. Have fun. I've been doing it since the beginning of summer, and we absolutely have a ball. So yes, numbers, you ask the questions. Make sure you have your guidelines. And one very important guideline that I love to talk more about is making sure that they share their video. If we're answering questions and someone's video is not shared, that's kind of hard to build trust because we want to know who we're speaking to and who's listening to us. Because in the end, all we want to know is that we're seen, heard, and valued. So that's kind of what a virtual circle looks like. I've been doing it since the beginning of summer. We have anywhere from 5 to 20 people join. Today I had 25 students on a virtual circle, and we did it in less than 45 minutes. It can be done. And a lot of teachers saying, I don't have time for that. I can't do a circle and still do this. In less than 45 minutes, 25 students, 4 adults answered 4 questions. And it was amazing. It was amazing.
So when you do have your circles, where do you get your students from, or is that a student and a teacher kind of circle that you're talking about, or is it just students?
So on Mondays and Thursdays, it's an educator circle, and that's educators from all over the world. I've had educators from Georgia, the country, Japan join those circles. And the student circles, teachers get the opportunity to sign up for me to facilitate a classroom circle with their students for free. I also do staff circles for free. Where staff want to do a circle, they call me up, we schedule it, and I'll facilitate staff circles. So reach out to our Facebook page or our website, or they can email. If you can drop Sarah's information in the chats, they can email Sarah to schedule that if they want.
Okay, that's Sarah
at nerp.com. Love to facilitate if anybody wants, or have anyone join us for our educator circles.
Okay, I'm putting that. That's in S-A-R-A or S-A-R-A-H?
S-A-R-A-H.
Okay. That's Sarah at
nedrp.com.
nedrp. I'm putting that in the chat for anyone who would like to contact. And it's national, it's educators, not education. It's national educators for restorative practices. And they can go either on the, you have a Facebook page
or the website. Give them the link. And I also want to share another tool for administrators, teachers, everyone on here. We have a podcast. It's called Relationship Centered Learning. You can also find that on the podcast. We have students who come on and share and speak, administrators, teachers, and we talk real talk. Everything that we're discussing tonight, you get to hear from educators or students from all over. The focus is relationship-centered learning. You know, how do we get through a pandemic? What does that look like? And we talk virtual things. So great tool there.
So the podcast is titled
Relationship-Centered Learning.
Relationship-Centered
Learning. And they can find that also on our website.
Okay. All right. I'll put that in the chat for podcast. We have another question. Dr. Polk and Ms. Holliday, student values become secondary when teachers suffer trauma through COVID. Yes. Is there anything we can do to help the teachers as they go through this now?
Yes. How do we build a community on campus where we can, and we are putting teachers first? I like to talk to administrators about doing those big sparks that teachers need. It's the little moments that teachers need to know you're doing a great job, even though it doesn't feel like it. So maybe we're dropping them their favorite snacks, or maybe we're showing up with their favorite treats or lunch being delivered as best way as possible. I think staying connected and checking in with the staff is so important. Dropping a little note as we all figure this out together. We are all figuring out together, but we must take care of our teachers. We must figure out a creative way to do that. Connect with them, have some fun, do those 2-minute connections. We expect to have the weight of the world on us and still be okay.
So
we have to be okay.
We have administrators with us tonight. We have counselors with us tonight, and they can listen. And some of them have been through the training.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a way that they can receive the training virtually? And do we have that set up?
Absolutely. So they can receive our training self-pace virtual, where they sign on and take 8 hours at their own pace. They also can receive a live virtual training with us, where they'll have small group facilitators that'll go into breakout rooms and really work with those teachers. They'll get a live person virtually. And then we also do a coaching piece where we will spend some time with a group of teachers in a certain district and meet with them weekly and coach them through all of those things that they might be, those challenging things. How do we get through it? But unpacking all of those proactive tools while we're doing it. So virtual, self-paced, virtual live, or coaching for teachers and administrators.
So, teachers want a quick fix. Administrators want a quick fix. The principal wants a quick fix. And there's one thing that I know about restorative practices. It's not something that you can give somebody a form to fill out, give somebody a manual to read, and it's going to have all the answers that's going to help you with all the problems that you have in the classroom. That is not restorative practices. Restorative practices, once you go through the training, it changes you as a person. I think that being in education, people think, they have it all together. They have a college degree and, they're smart. It's like having when we used to have a textbook, you had a textbook for the kids and a textbook for the teachers. Well, the teacher's textbook had all the answers. And it's just not like that. And especially now as we're going through COVID. And I do want to say that in the area where I am and in many other areas, schools have opened. They have closed for hurricanes. In some parts of the country, they have closed for fires. They have closed because either students or teachers have had COVID and the schools have had to close for that. And then the kids had to go virtual and then back to face-to-face. You have administrators who were not in their buildings. They were working from home. You had parents trying to manage how to take care of children and take care of their job while the kids were doing their virtual, which was no small task at all. And then at the schools, people are trying to figure out. Well, they're trying to manage COVID the best way they can. They learn one thing one day and something else the next day. They're concerned about masks. They're concerned about social distancing. They're concerned about personal hygiene. They're just all of that. And on top of that, let's make sure they get an education on top of all of that.
Well, yes.
So the stress level of the teachers is something I think now more than ever. Restorative practices, if we start at the top with the teachers, with the administrators, to get them to understand themselves first, and then understand the people that they have working for them, and then the students. So tell me, just, as we shut down, tell me, and in such a way that you just have a gift where you make people feel calm. If you at this point can just reach out to the teachers and administrators who are listening tonight to give them the kinds of encouragement they need through some of the things that you teach on a daily basis.
First, I want to start off by saying restorative is not something you do. It's something we go through. We go through it together. We're learning together. The other thing is when we do this work of restorative building and connecting, it's a way of living, a way of being in our everyday life. But I want to say this to everyone listening. We might be stuck right now and trying to figure out how do we move through this. We need to come up for air. Um, we don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all together. Just your willingness to listen and hear from others and collaborate with others on ideas on what to do. Think about those barriers that might come up and sit down with someone and say, you know what, we're going to sit and talk about some response to barriers. But I want you to know this is just a time, and I know it's a tough time. We got this, because one thing for sure, educators are the real MVPs during this COVID time right now, because I have seen educators step up to the plate like no other. It only takes one. It only takes one person, one child, one administrator, one person to change the bad for good. And that one person for me was Mr. Starling. Had it not been for him noticing me in my toughest times and my most traumatic times, he saw me. And I see you, educators. Take a moment and reflect on the little things, the good. Take a step back, take a deep breath, check yourselves, and know, you know what? I need a moment. And have the back of that teacher that might be really struggling right now. You have my information. Call me. But I want you to know more than anything, guys, Circle Mama loves you, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Call me if I can support you, if I can guide you, facilitate circles. Please, please, please lean on me and let me know. You got this. We don't have to be right. We just need to get it right. And when we get it right, that takes work, time, patience. Move with grace and move at the speed of trust.
So, as teachers are in the classroom, as administrators are either, walking through the building or observing teachers remotely, the things that we want to take away tonight is that there's hope. Is that response and restorative practices is not just a thing that you just kind of throw up and use when you get into a tight with a child. It's about knowing yourself. It's about building relationships with children. from the time they walk into the classroom. It's about the way you structure your class for from the time they walk in. There's something you can do at the door. Their teachers through restorative practices are taught how to do circles. They can do circles the way that fits their environment. And the purpose of the circle is to build relationships. All children may not want to participate in circles, and that just lets that teacher know that this child is one that they need to be aware of, and that we can have virtual circles. We can have virtual restorative practices, and it's almost something that's spiritual. I see, Denise.
Yes, it is. It is. Restorative is know the spirit in that work. You got to know the spirit. Like, it's set on the foundation of values. When we think about values, it's in our genes, right? It's in our genes. It allows for our best self to show up for others. And there's a spirit in that, and we all have it in us. We all have it in us. Sometimes we have to dig really deep to find that little light, but once we get there, let that light shine, so that it may be the light that someone in the dark may have needed in that moment.
And the thing that I want to bring back full circle is that research has shown that the majority of the children, at least in the state of Texas and nationally, the majority of the students who have been suspended are children of color. And usually it's been boys. There are some girls, but usually it's boys. And those kids end up being a part of that school to pipeline transition. And we know that if a child does not have at least 5 credits by the end of the first semester of his 9th grade year, and he's getting suspended, he or she is going to drop out. And that's all it is to it. And unless the restorative practices are put into place, we are losing a generation of children.
Yes.
We are especially sensitive to that now because of the pandemic. We have children who already came to us behind. Then you had a half year of instruction gone. Then you have all of the trauma associated with the COVID and going back to school. We have some kids who have never returned to school. And if we as administrators, we need help ourselves. We need help so that we can help the children. And as administrators, we focus on the curriculum and the content and PLCs. And what good is all of that if we're losing our children? So with the restorative practices, that is one piece, that is one cushion to help to save our children. I have a comment: so disheartened to see so many adults so disconnected, angry and mean-spirited to children. And what kills me is it's allowed to be that way. An administrator said, "Do what I ask because you don't want to make me mad. Now, do we need restorative practices? Do we need restorative practices?
What we need to do is go back and build a genuine relationship, because if you're genuinely connected and you genuinely have a relationship with that individual, how do you speak to them that way? So we gotta go all the way back to the playbook, the beginning, and build and connect. Because to speak to someone in that manner just causes harm. It just causes harm. I want to say this and leave you guys with this. We must connect before we correct. All right. So if you're not connected with me, and we are not connecting, you don't know anything about me, you don't even know my name, and you have me in the hallway telling me to do something, you can just hang it up, because they will check out in a minute. Connect before we correct, but we also must connect before we content. So we think about content being the number one thing. If we connect first, the content will be easy. I've seen it. I've lived it. It's my testimony.
Well, Denise, I tell you, there's just so much more we can talk about. And I just thank you for giving your time tonight. Again, Circle Mama, you have touched some hearts. We know it's in the heart. That's what's going to make the change. And if you are in front of children and you don't like children, or you disrespect children, then there's something that's within you that needs to be checked.
Mm-hmm. Self-reflection is what it is. Restorative practice is great. And remember, guys, we can and we will heal hearts one circle at a time.
We will heal hearts one circle at a time. I'm putting that in chat. We will heal hearts one circle at a time. There we go. There we go. Okay, Denise. Well, we're so happy.
Time. I cannot wait till the next time. Guys, reach out, go to our Facebook page, join some of those weekly circles, call me or send us an email. I can jump in on a classroom circle and allow you to experience it. If you want to see what it looks like or feel what it looks like, I'm here for you. I love you guys, and there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing at all.
All right, Denise, we're gonna get back together in January.
Yes.
We hope you have a great Thanksgiving holiday, a safe holiday.
Yes.
And we know this Thanksgiving is going to be unlike any other, just like everything else. And of course, for the Christmas holidays. Just stay safe and be vigilant as well. And we'll be coming back in January, and we'll be looking at a webinar, because I do know that lots of people came on tonight and they want some specifics.
Okay.
I want to know, what do I do for step 1, step 2, step 3? I know now that the purpose of restorative practices was to make sure that children who were being suspended are able to stay in the classroom. That was the original reason.
That's right.
But we're finding out that there's something deeper than that. It's us as administrators, as educators, as parents, that we need to check the inside of us. To see the way we're treating children,
right?
And that's where it is.
Everybody wants to be seen, heard, and valued. And remember, if you see someone without a smile, give them yours.
All right. If you see someone without a smile, give them yours. Thank you, Francois, who said stay safe. And we're going to end our broadcast for tonight. And we'll see you back in January, Denise.
All righty. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Night.
Good night.